Hello, everyone. IOTA at a staking summit. Who would have ever thought about that? But here we are. It took us a bit. Actually, we are having our 10th birthday today from our first white paper. So, yeah, I think we took some time to think about how proof of stake will help us. And actually, that's all what we're here for. We're built to make a difference. And I think from those that have heard about IOTA from the old times, IoT, billions of machines talking to each other and paying to each other, this was always the drive, yeah? So what are we actually here for with DLTs? What do we do in the world that actually improves the life of people, businesses, and things like this? And over the years, we've learned a lot. So we've worked very, very closely with a lot of large organizations in the space. We've been very active in the business and in the regulatory space. We've worked with all the major European companies, Porsche, VW, Bosch, all these things. And when you go through these different cycles that we have in the space, in like this year's meme coins, you figure out the only thing that actually really will bring DLTs into the next level is stuff that actually happens in the real world. Yeah, it's everything around bringing use cases in front of people and in front of businesses. And what IOTA did was basically we've been the first German nonprofit foundation in 2017. We also last year have become the first DLT foundation under ADGM here in Abu Dhabi, which was a big step. So we're approaching it always from the point of view of how can we get that thing actually into the hands of the real world. Yeah, so we're working with regulators and we're working to actually enable use cases that make sense. Currently, what we have is we have an IOTA Layer 1 mainnet, which is live since 2016. And actually on Monday, we will launch our delegated proof of stake, fully decentralized new mainnet that's leveraging the Move VM, which we actually believe is the most interesting architecture in the space currently. Yeah, so we've looked into EVM, we've looked into all the other things, but we've decided to go with Move VM. It's kind of seems to be for us the next thing that we actually can bring in front of people that they can use. We have an EVM chain since around 1.5 years. That's a side chain in the moment. The EVM is great. It's actually bringing an easy access for builders into the ecosystem. Our plan in the future is to basically merge those things together, bring the EVM execution down to the layer 1. So kind of because the layer 1 is going to be very, very scalable. So you don't want to have all the activity split between those layers. And we're working on basically having the layer 1 validator set, executing also EVM bytecode, then they actually execute both. What we do around real-world adoption is we are tokenomics stuff. We are building a lot of things around trade finance, digital identity, and verifiable credentials. Yeah, this is where we see, and what we've heard over the years is where we actually believe we can get governments, we can get institutions, we can get businesses on chain to actually use the technology. We don't believe retail is the only thing that you need to tackle. Yeah, the adoption of crypto will much more come from the side of regulated entities and from institutions that figure out the actual advantages that they can have with DLTs. So we build a set of tooling that starts with identity, that starts with trust hierarchies and notarizations and tokenization of assets that will allow businesses and governments to interact on-chain and to build its own economy on that network. Especially in the identity space, I think we're very, very advanced. We've been selected into several EU projects, so we're working since around 2018 with the European Union, European Commission on several proof of concepts all the time, where we understood how regulators see the space. And it's kind of a eye-opening thing if you hear their arguments and if you hear their questions. And I think we've been on one of the projects that has been really deeply involved in that thing. So we've learned over the years what it takes actually and how long it takes actually to convince institutions and businesses to really do something with DLTs. Another thing that is important is the notarization of assets and of data. So this is a large use case for us. Okay. More stuff, trade finance, but happy to hear your questions, guys.
Could you tell me a little bit more about comparing the IOTA and SUI, for instance? What be the core difference?
Yes. So we took a large portion of SUI, consensus, and especially the move VM. Our differentiator is actually the use cases that we build along that and the experience that we've gained over the last 8 years in that space. I think this is something you can't take that away. Yeah, a new project, a lot of new projects popping up every day. They all will have to go through these hard learning parts of understanding how you can enable adoption. What differentiates us from SUI in the tokenomic part is that we are actually not depend on let's say, a fixed pool of assets to pay validators for. We figured out that doesn't make sense because this pool will run out, and then you have to figure out how you actually going to incentivize the service providers. So we mint new tokens every day. So we have a constant inflation of around 6% per year. All on governance can be changed. That is all going to stakers and to validators. Yeah, so every day you get rewarded depending on the network, not depending on the network usage. Yeah, so a validator is doing a job. You're providing a service. You're securing the network. A token holder is doing a job. The token holder provides his tokens to provide the security, and this is a value that should be rewarded by the chain continuously for the future, for the next 5, 10, 15 years, how long this thing will run. Also, we have a different system for the storage deposits. So our storage deposit that the user pays to store data in the ledger is 100% refundable. There's no kind of fund where this is going to manage it. It's just directly deposited in the object. Once an object is deleted, the whole storage deposit goes back. We're working on the consensus side on a large improvement of the current Mississippi. White paper was just released 4 weeks ago, and we're bringing this to our public testnet over the next couple of weeks, where we start to work with our validator set on bringing our Starfish consensus that will heavily improve the whole system, especially under not so optimal network conditions. Yeah, we saw that there can be some issues when you have not a perfect validator set, when you don't have a perfect network connection, when you have a largely distributed validator set all over the globe. The communication complexity in such high throughput DAGs is very difficult. And we've been working and researching on that stuff since 2017. So we figured out some ways how we can improve that thing and make it more reliable and more resilient under bad connections.
Or are there any in production applications using any of this or planned?
Yes.
Let me add to the question. So you've mentioned that you have already L2 up and running. What's happening there? Any traction?
Yes. So actually, one of our largest adoption use cases is the flower trade between Kenya and the UK. So currently, already Kenya is producing a lot of flowers, roses, tulips, and stuff. They are shipped to UK. All that is notarized already on our current network. So you have basically digital identity and verifiable credentials of all that the trade flow between Kenya and the UK. This is a project, actually, my last slide. This is Twin. This is the Trade Worldwide Information Network. We're building this together with the World Economic Forum, with Tony Blair Institute, and Trademark East Africa. This is where it all started. Like in 2017, we started this together with the Kenyan government. And this is now largely expanding and taking a large part of the countries in the West Africa, the EU. We're expanding into Asia. So we actually want to build a system that enables the digitalization of the global trade system, but not on a way like it was done before, where it was always done with centralized entities like Maersk. They wanted to build their own thing and wanted to control it. Twin is a individual and an independent governance body that creates standards on the technical side and on the regulatory side, how global trade flow and global trade financing can happen on-chain. And digital identity, notarization of assets, and tokenization of assets, it's a large portion of that. And all of that stuff is basically going to roll out on IOTA over the next months, years. It all takes time. It's like regulatory compliance and bringing stuff into the real world is not something that you're gonna happen in a couple of months. So this is what we learned.